This is part 2 of our lesson on common factoring. In the first part, we talked about figuring out the greatest common factor, or GCF, of some expressions. And now we're going to use that to actually factor. So at the beginning of the other video, I said that factoring is just taking an expression and trying to figure out what the multiplication question was that gave us this. So if I have 6x take away 18, what I want to do is create a multiplication question where I multiply something times something that gives me 6x minus 18. So when I'm trying to figure out what I multiplied by, I'm looking for my greatest common factor, and I am going to use my multiplication grid to help me figure out what number, the largest possible number, that divides into both 6 and 18. So I am looking for a row that has 6 and 18 in it. I see 6 and 18 showing up in row number 1. I see 6 and 18 showing up in row number 2. I see 6 and 18 showing up in row number 3. I do not see them in 4 or 5. Oh, I do see 6 and 18 showing up in row number 6. And then after that, the numbers are bigger than 6, so I know that I need to stop. So I think here 6 and 18 both divide by 6. So their greatest common factor is going to be a 6. So if I was going to create a multiplication question, it might have been 6 times something that gave me 6x minus 18. Now to figure out the something that goes in the bracket, all we do is divide. So I'm going to take 6x and divide it by 6. So I could use the multiplication grid to help me with that, or I can use my calculator. I can't put the x in, but I can do the numbers. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So this is going to be 1x. And then I do the same thing with the 18. I'm going to treat that as a minus 18 or a negative 18. So I'm going to take negative 18 and divide it by 6. And I get negative 3. So I'm going to put minus 3. So a multiplication question that would give me an answer of 6x minus 18 is 6 times 1x minus 3. That's all factoring is. It's just us trying to find a multiplication question, right, that would give us that as the answer. All right, let's take a look at the next one. I have 40x squared plus 10x. And the first thing I want to do is try to find a common factor that I might have multiplied by in order to get this. So I start with the 40 and the 10. I'm looking on my multiplication grid for some place that 40 and 10 both show up. And I see 40 and 10 show up in the row for 5. And it also shows up in the row for 10. So the larger number that I could find was 10, that 10 and 40 both show up in the row for 10. So I'm going to say that 10 is our greatest common factor. But with this one, I also notice they both have x's. So I'm going to say not only did we multiply by 10, I think we multiplied by 10x because they both had an x. Okay, then we divide. So I do 40 divided by 10. 40 divided by 10, you can use your multiplication grid, or maybe you know this one, is 4. Now this is the slightly trickier part. X squared divided by x. So x squared means x times x, right? So this was x times x. We are taking one of those x's out by dividing, and there should still be one of those x's left in there with the 4. So there should be a 4x because x times x makes x squared. And then 10 divided by 10 is 1. So this is going to be plus 1. And then I've divided the x out as well. So x divided by x is also just 1. So 10x divided by 10x is 1. If I were to multiply it back out, 10 times 4 is 40. X times x is x squared. And then 10 times 1 is 10x. Right? So the multiplication question that gave me 40x squared plus 10x is 10x times 4x plus 1. We have one more example. This one is negative 6x squared plus 8x minus 20. So I'm going to start with 6, 8, and 20. And I want to look on my multiplication grid and try to find a row that has 6, 8, and 20. So they should always be in row number 1, which they are. Row number 2 has 6, 8, and 20. 3 does not. 4 has 8 and 20, but not 6. 5 has 20. 6 has the 6, but doesn't have any of the other numbers. And we're now looking at numbers bigger than one of our numbers, right? So if I go to 7, that's already bigger than 6, which is one of the numbers we're looking for. So I think the best we could do for the 6, 8, and 20 was 2. They all divide by 2. So I'm going to say out front, we multiplied by 2. Now, did I do 2x? This has an x, this has an x, that does not have an x. So no, it would have just been the number 2. And then to find our bracket, I am going to say, I could just say it's 2, but because the very first number is a negative 6, I am very tempted to say that we multiplied by negative 2. But you could do positive 2. It doesn't really matter. But because the very first number is negative, I think I'm going to say that we multiplied by negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to take each of those and divide. So I'm going to do negative 6 divided by negative 2, and I get 3. So this is going to be 3. And then it has an x squared. We're not taking any of the x squareds out, so that's just x squared. Then I'm going to do 8 divided by negative 2, which is negative 4. And that has an x. And then negative 20 divided by negative 2 is 10. So that's positive 10, so I am going to put plus 10. And if I were to check, if I multiplied negative 2 times 3, I get negative 6, x squared. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8, x. And then negative 2 times positive 10 is negative 20. So we have created a multiplication question that gives me that as the answer. Okay, so we are going to do more common factoring tomorrow, but for today, I would like you to see if you can do some practice questions, right? The first question is asking you to just state the greatest common factor. You don't actually have to factor. And then the second question, I actually want you to factor those. And that's what you're going to work on for the rest of the period. And if you don't finish by the end of the period, that is going to be your homework. I hope you have a good rest of your day.